According to new research from Amazon Ads and Skift, 97% of travelers will take a leisure trip in the next year. These customers are looking for more than a deal. They're looking for a new experience. Travelers discover destinations through entertainment, recommendations, and everyday moments, with 1 in 4 finding their next destination while streaming shows and movies. That's where Amazon Ads comes in. Amazon Ads Solutions empowers advertisers to engage travelers across Prime Video, Twitch, and shopping channels with personalized messaging that inspires and converts. Ready to transform your travel marketing? Visit advertising.amazon.com to learn more.
Hey folks, welcome back. It is the Skift Travel Podcast. I am Skift's editor-in-chief, Sarah Kopit, as always, joined by Skift's head of research, Seth Borko. Seth, we have not spoken in a while. How have you been?
I've been great. You know, I'm in the festive season. We had Thanksgiving and we have a global audience, but here in the US after Thanksgiving, Christmas is getting earlier and earlier and all the lights are up, the trees are out. I love this time of year. How have you been? How was Dallas? Fort Worth?
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
Fort
it
Worth.
was great. We had Skift Aviation Forum in Dallas just this week, and it was fantastic. Dallas was cold too. We were complaining about the frigid weathers, but the Texans were they were especially whiny about it, I should say. The New Yorkers are whiny about it, but when it's 30 degrees in Dallas, they were all bundled up, so that was kind of funny. But today we are going to talk about all things hospitality with Warren Fields, who we were just talking about the Cayman Islands. And so we're going to get into that a little bit later as we all dream about some warmer weather. But first, before we get into it, a quick reminder to send any questions or comments that you have to podcast@skift.com. And do not forget to hit the follow, hit the subscribe, hit the like button, give us 5 stars, all that good stuff. If you're enjoying the Skift Travel Podcast, because it helps us spread the word and get more listeners, which is always good for us. So Warren, first of all, I was reading that you are from the Midwest, just like me. So let's bond about that for a moment. Where did you grow up? I must know.
Yeah, so I was born in Pittsburgh.
Okay, so not quite the Midwest. Yeah.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time in Cleveland, but I'm a rabid Steeler fan in Patriots country. And I lived in Cleveland, just outside of a little town called Shaker Heights for 12 years.
Yeah, well, Ohio. I'm a Wolverine, so we won't.
Oh, okay.
I won't hold that against you. I won't.
Yes,
I won't. We'll not. We won't talk about Ohio.
No, I know. Last weekend was tough for you. I get it. It's fine.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
I can't give Sarah the sports talk she deserves. I'm not as much of a sports fan, so I'm glad we have someone who can talk college football, Sarah.
But Seth can talk hospitality, so he will do that now. Yeah.
Well, look, Warren, you are the CEO of Pyramid Global. It is one of the largest hospitality hotel management companies in the country, probably in the world. I mean, let's just start. Tell us a bit about Pyramid. How many people, how many hotels, and how did it get so big? Let's dive into the hospitality stuff.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. You don't always get to talk about Pyramid, and I actually rarely talk about Pyramid because Pyramid is a collection of hotels that, we're fortunate to run with some fantastic owners. But also we have 18,000 associates, across the globe who actually deliver the message every day and roughly call it 170, 180 hotels, right? So it's less about Warren Fields and what he does and sort of the corporate team. It's more about, the people at the hotels. It's more about, the people that are sort of right above the properties. They're the ones who create the magic. We set strategy. We try to help them. We try to give them tools. And, quite frankly, I can't tell you how humbled I am because the stuff actually works. It seems really corny. You would not believe some of the people programs that we have. I have a great chief people officer. She does a fantastic job. We're always trying to do things for the associates, but ultimately what we focus on is how do we get our associates to take care of the guests, because that's what take care of the owner. And if the owners are taken care of, well, by golly, we win.
Well, Warren, we're going to get very much into the weeds. Don't worry about it. But our podcast, Skift's audience and readership is a lot of hotel people who know exactly what you're talking about. But we also have some destinations. We have some airline people. We have people all over the industry. So for those who are maybe not familiar, maybe talk a bit about you're right. The hotel industry is broken into three parts, right? There's the brands, there's the management companies, and then there's the owners. So let's just set those table stakes before we get too into it. You are a management company. What do you see as the mission of a management company? How does it fit into the hotel industry?
So you're right. There are only three. I'm glad you said there's only three because I know there's more, but the management.
Let's get into the 20 pieces of the hotel industry. Let's
right. Yeah, no.
Let's go into each one at length.
Right. I'm glad you narrowed it down. Look, from a management perspective, what we do is we take an asset. Actually, I'll say it like this. We're in the value creation business. That's what we are as a hotel manager. Okay. And the asset class happens to be hotels. That's what we do. We try to take an asset that, an owner may be a little frustrated with. It may need a renovation. It may need a food and beverage reinvention. It may just need, an operational remake. Okay. That's what hotel managers do. We are hired to solve problems. We are rarely, if ever, put into a hotel that is actually running well. Okay? That's just not what we do. We go into places that are dysfunctional. Okay. And then we fix them. That's really what our job is. Okay. And, I can maybe on one hand talk about the hotels that we went into that were actually running really well. Okay. So we manage stuff. Okay. We hire, we train, we run the balance sheet. We do everything, soup to nuts.
You probably play like therapist and counselor to a lot of hotel owners and associates as well. I would guess. Is that right?
Yeah, we do that. I mean, the hotel owners are a very interesting breed, but what you have to do is and look, at the end of the day, it's their property, right? So I can tell them whatever I want. We can give them recommendations. We can do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's their property. And you know what? We're going to do what they ask us to do, whether we agree with it or not. Well, once we leave the room and we say this is the plan, we go execute against it.
So you get to talk to a lot of hotel owners, obviously. I'm curious, what's the vibe right now in hospitality? Like, what are you hearing from a lot of that? I use that term kind of very broadly. Like, what's the general consensus about how things are going at the moment?
Well, because of the indecision that we have been seeing from a governmental perspective, which is translated it into sort of indecision from a business perspective, there's a little bit of stagnation, right?
Are you talking about tariffs?
I'm talking about everything. There's a little bit of tariffs, but tariffs don't necessarily, while they impact our business, right? Yeah. It's not a direct impact, right? It's not like the shipping industry, right? Where, there's a tariff on goods from China. Well, they just stop sending the stuff because they don't want to pay the tariff on the goods, right? We have things like, Canadian travelers in 25, they didn't show up to the U.S., right? That was a big issue. It's going to be a big issue in the first quarter if they don't start coming back.
I don't think they are, by the way. We could talk about the Canadians, but I don't think they are, which is kind of stunning to me. I'm surprised that they, as a group, have kind of held to their guns. They're mad and they're still not coming.
Yeah, I give them a lot of credit. They would go to Florida, they would go to Arizona, and all those places. So everyone in the U.S. start going to those places. All right, from Michigan to Ohio to New York, go to Arizona, go to Florida. You're gonna find great deals right now because it's just it's not going to be as busy as it was. So those are sort of the headlines. The headlines are revenues are sort of stagnant. Costs are going up. And oh, by the way, hotel managers, we hired you to solve problems. What are you doing about it? Right? That's our business.
So yeah, I was going to say you are in the crux of all of it. You've got rising costs, slower revenue. You've got hotel owners who want their return on investment yesterday. And by the way, you've got the brands who are telling you, do things our way. And you're like, well, I think, how do you actually let's talk a little bit operations. Like, how do you grow profits in a world where revenues are slower and costs are higher, and you're the one who has to turn a profit? What does that look like in practice?
Well, we ignore the brands. Wait a minute, I didn't even say that. That was Tourette's. Sorry. No, we go. We love the brands. Actually, the brands are really good partners, and they have huge distribution systems that drive to the properties, right? And for some hotels, they're really good. For other hotels that have a true following and have built up a reputation as an independent property, you don't need them, right? And when I think about our business and the depth and the breadth of the properties that we have, I think we're either the largest or the second largest in the country of independent luxury hotels that we operate. We understand that business, and so I love the brands: Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, Choice. We have Choice hotels, and you name Wyndham's. We have them all. We are brand agnostic. There are certain brands that are really good for some hotels, and there are certain hotels that just don't need a brand. So anyway, to answer your question, so what are the things that we can do, right? So as an example, our healthcare, we have seen increases in our healthcare portfolio in the 3 to 4% over the past 4 to 5 years. And no one's doing that, right? This year, I think our healthcare will go up 3.5% across our portfolio here in the U.S. We've been able to negotiate our property insurance plans to a significant, almost, I wouldn't say a discount, but, again, when we look across the industry, our increases are significantly lower than any of our competitors. So things like that we can help control are the things that we do. As an example, labor. We have, I'm sure we'll talk about AI and tools and all that other stuff later, but, we track.
You're right,
labor.
we will.
Yeah, we track labor. We track labor, and that's sort of the biggest thing that we can manage within our hotels. Is how do we deal with our labor? How do we deal with costs that we can control, like healthcare, like property insurance with our owners and our carriers? But we bring them all in as partners, right? Our GPO, we have a really good, really excellent relationship with the vendor. They've helped us, drive costs down in our properties for, the goods and services that we buy through them. So things like that are the things that we have to do relative to driving as much top line as possible. And also, we have a really good pipeline from a group perspective. Our national sales team has done an excellent job of driving group business in our hotels for 26. Our pre-bookings are off the charts.
So it's a combination of like you're in, and GPO is what group? That's group purchasing, right?
No, GPO is so I meant Avendra. We have a global program with Avendra, which actually we just started using for our team over in London. And, Avendra is a purchasing program. That's what I meant by GPO.
Yeah. So your supplies, like the bed sheets and the laundry program and all that stuff. So you're really in the weeds smart about your healthcare and your insurance and your vendors. Labor is the big one. So let's talk a bit about that. I mean, how do you square this circle? You need great people and great salespeople, like you said. You need great people to run great hotels. You run luxury properties. I mean, you run the whole scale, but you have a great portfolio of luxury. And people aren't cheap. Inflation has been, very high, and we've seen wages rise in line with that inflation. So how do you balance, effectively paying people a fair salary and getting people in the door to do the job with keeping your labor costs under control for your owners? This seems to be, in my mind, the biggest challenge for the hotel industry, and it seems like it's trying to square a circle. I don't know how you do it. So what do you think about that?
I can't tell you. It's a secret. No,
okay, podcast over.
I'm just kidding. So, look, at the end of the day, you have to pay a fair wage. Okay. And, we try to create an environment where, we want our people to grow. Okay. Our people grow, it helps the company grow. And so, look, the market is what it is when it comes to salaries, wages, benefits. And if you're not competitive, you're just not going to get really good people. Right. And so, the one thing that I tell not just our owners, but, really good owners attract really good people to their assets. Okay. And, look, at some level, if I have to sort of run a little bit leaner in certain areas, you still have to provide good service. But, most owners, they sort of understand, look, we were talking about Grand Cayman, in season, we can't really run lean. We got to provide the service for the people, but, we charge for it. It's sort of the shoulder and the downtimes is really where every hotel makes their money, right? In season, you're going to crush it. And so how do you manage the things sort of in our shoulder season and off season? So as an example, in a place like in some of the resort locations, maybe we'll move people from one hotel to another hotel that needs bodies. Okay. Or we'll put some people on task force to do something else, or they'll help us with transitions. So we'll have to figure out ways to be smart about, managing the payroll at every aspect. It's not easy. And like I said, I can't sit here and tell you that Warren Fields is manipulating, 140 hotels in the U.S. We just have a really good system of people, and they buy into it. Everybody buys into it.
So we're coming up to the end of 2025, going into 2026, and Skift, like many other publications, is doing our kind of a little bit of our forecasting, like looking into 2026, what are going to be the big trends? And I know that you have a F&B background. And so I'm curious, one of our trends is talking about non-alcoholic beverages. I know this is very specific, but I really want to get your take on it because you have a background there. Do you think that this is a blip or a fad, the kind of the rise of the mocktail? And does it impact the bottom line of any of your properties that people, especially younger travelers, seem to be kind of giving a big shrug to booze and ordering, non-alcoholic beverages instead?
Well, since I'm racking my brain here. When was the last time I had a mocktail? So, maybe never. Right. So I don't know. I'm just kidding. So, but you're right. You're spot on. It's unbelievable. Right. And
yeah, it is. It's very it kind of came out of nowhere to me anyway.
Yeah. The trend has been going on for a few years. Right. And look, when you think about, health and wellness and, things that are sort of at the forefront of not only just our industry, but just health in general.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. I actually think of things like, when I was in my 30s and 40s, the California wine scene was off the charts, really, really busy, really, really good. Everybody wanted to go to Napa, and, there's a plethora of grapes right now. Right. And it's just, the things that, what's interesting is, post-COVID, the things that we thought were sort of must-haves or must-dos pre-COVID, all that's changed, right? And
isn't that amazing?
yeah, and it was like that. Right?
Yeah.
What are some examples? Like mocktails is one. What are some other examples of things that you think have changed?
Or that changed overnight, like really fast?
Yeah, I mean, look, going in the office, right?
Sure.
That's
as we record this, as me and Sarah record this remotely.
Yeah, no, but that's a big deal. And I'm sure you guys have talked about how, I think it's a detrimental effect, particularly on young people who aren't in the office and seeing what the rest of the world is doing, and how, I grew by being in the office, understanding what people were doing, listening, trying to wedge my way into meetings that I wasn't supposed to be in, right? Because that's where, you learn things. So things like that. And, just, I would even say, I'm not even sure that, young people don't take car trips like we used to take, right? You would sort of get in the car and drive for a couple hours to go see something, right? I mean, it's just not, it's not as, well, I'm really enthused because, the young people in our shop, they're 10 times smarter. They're they're light years ahead of where I was in my 20s and 30s. But by the same token, and I'm not suggesting that everything I did in my 20s and 30s was, what we should have been doing, but it sort of helped us to lead us to sort of, how to figure things out more versus just having everything handed to us, right? And we had to scrap and claw and work on things a lot harder than I think our generation does.
This is an interesting point because there's a huge generational shift happening. And this brings us back to what we were talking about before with talent, which is that, well, for right or wrong, young people want more flexibility. They want these remote jobs, and hospitality is anything but a remote job. You got to be in person. You got to work long hours. And I've heard it said, and I would be curious your take on this, that there's kind of a recruiting talent crisis, that is the hardest thing is to find good people, young and old. You work late shifts, overnights, you work long hours, you don't get the best pay. You get these customers that complain to you about something that's totally out of your control. It's a very high turnover industry. And, again, I've heard it said it's leading to a bit of a talent crisis. I want to come back to this. I mean, would you agree that there's a talent crisis in hospitality, or what's your take on that?
I would almost say I think there's a talent crisis every year, quite frankly. Okay.
Is it worse in hospitality, though?
Well, I think hospitality has some inherent issues. Like when I first started, it was a badge of honor to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It was so stupid. I mean, you can't do that 50 weeks a year. It's ridiculous. So, I don't know what other people are doing, but I can tell you what we, okay? And what we do, we have tried really hard to take sort of things that are not, as an example, report. Okay. We used to have these weekly reports, and it would take, the team at the hotel 3, 4, 5 hours. Okay. It's down to 30 minutes. We take a lot of the transactional things away from the management team that they used to have to do on property, who's taken that away. And so what we're trying to do is, like, I believe a general manager or a director of sales, or, even managers, they should be able to go home for dinner, right? I mean, I can pull up on my phone, every hotel, look at their P&L, look at how they did in today versus having to grab all these reports, which is what we used to have to do, is grab a lot of reports, spend, 6, 7 hours putting all the information together. And then by the time I put it together, I'm so freaking tired, I couldn't analyze. Now they pull it up on a screen, they can see, they can make decisions. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the decision-making process as simple as possible, which allows people to have a work-life balance. That's what we're trying.
So I'm putting words in your mouth. I know it's not exactly the same, but to quote Warren Fields, the answer to the talent crisis in hospitality is technology, is sort of what, I'm joking. That's me being a bit.
No, it is, but it's also having the fortitude and also giving the teams of the properties to make the decisions. Like, well, I don't have to be here for this 2 hours because I want to go watch my kid's soccer game, but I'm going to come back and do something else, right?
Yeah.
I'm back to the hotel. It's sort of like it's our industry should not be at the point where somebody feels chained to the hotel.
Yeah.
They just shouldn't. They should be able, on certain days, they should be able to come and go, depending on business volumes, on just like any other job, right?
Yeah.
Giving people flexibility. It's not about remote work. It's about flexibility. And it's also about the technology. And Sarah, I know we were talking backstage about the number one technology, those 2 letters.
Those 2 little letters. So I am now convinced that whenever you bring up AI, it's kind of like the 2025, 2026 version of a Rorschach test, So when I say AI, what is your first thought? Like, what do you think about those 2 little letters?
Well, what I think about it is my company is not big enough to really have a significant impact on creating AI. Okay. So when I think of AI, I think that it should be available. It should be intuitive, and it should be able to help our people do things smarter, better, faster.
Are you using it?
Yes, we are. We use it in 2 specific ways. that helps us drive our business through AI. I actually have this one little app that I use where it sort of records some of our meetings, provides me transcripts, and then I send it out to the team, right? So that it summarizes everything, and it's just, that way when they say, well, I didn't say that, I go, no, here it is. Yes, right?
I do personally love the meeting transcripts myself. I love that it knows to not put in all the small talk. It's learned that.
Yeah. So we actually use AI at the property levels in two ways. So, first, think about it. Our customers use AI to help make decisions work faster. And importantly, they plan travel with, right? That's what they do now. They plan travel. So our teams are working to make, sure AI engines, like Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, and those large language models, that they have information about how and why our hotels, and resorts will meet their needs. That's number one, how we use AI. All right. It's no longer enough to have, solid websites. They have to be able to connect to all that, right? Because without that, you're going to be behind. And how else are you going to make things memorable, not only for your group attendees, but also for leisure travel, right? You just have to have it. So the second way we use AI is how and where our teams, to be more productive. Like sales, as an example, we have off-the-shelf AI tools to prospect for business, evaluate opportunities, and expedite customer responses. Those are the kind of things where we use AI. We're never going to be an AI company, right? Our data analytics platform, we use AI to help us. Our revenue management teams use AI, sort of for predictability, but we're not a technology company. We have to use stuff that's sort of off the shelf.
Can I ask a question on this? Maybe not about your processes and your operations, but Sarah and I do like to talk about Waze, the self-driving cars. Sorry, Waymo, not Waze, Waymo. Have you been in a Waymo?
I have not been in a Waymo. I was with somebody 2 weeks ago who was in one, and they said they were scared shitless. Sorry,
they were scared. That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll out curse on this podcast. It's okay.
Well, yeah, we're not FCC regulated. I think with the Waymos, the first one, it's kind of scary and shocking, but like you get over that by the second one.
Yeah.
The second trip. Yeah.
And Sarah and I both say, like, after our second ride in a Waymo, we were just convinced that this is the future. And I am wondering if you have had a similar experience in hotels with either AI or any tech, where you use the tech and at first you're scared shitless, but then you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be the future. Have you seen any AI tools or technology tools in your business, or even just in competitors, peers, or conferences out in the wild where you're like, oh yeah, this is where we're going?
Yeah, I know where you're getting at. Nothing comes to mind, although I would say that I would get in the Waymo. I wouldn't have an issue with it. I just haven't had the opportunity to jump in one,
For the record. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably get in the back seat and fall asleep. Like there's,
Oh, well, we think
Totally.
we think that's
the
one
opportunity.
of the big, that therein lies, that is the big opportunity. If you could, I was just talking about this at our aviation forum. Like if you could do lie flat seats in a Waymo like you do in an airplane, I think I would constantly make the trip to Michigan from New York. I don't think I'd ever fly again.
Right.
I just get in my self-driving car and wake up at grandma's house in the morning.
Yeah, our chief operating officer here at Pyramid, he has one of the Tesla trucks. And it drives itself. But, you can't fall asleep. You can't pick up your phone.
I was going to say they yell at you apparently when you read books and stuff when it's driving. I've talked to a lot of people who have tried to work while they're sitting behind the wheel, and they get I don't know if it's through an intercom or how Tesla yells at them, but that's what they report.
Chip. It's through a brain implant, obviously.
Yeah, through a Neuralink, right? As one does.
Yeah. So Seth, I will say that, sort of this robot delivery, to sort of answer your question, I thought that was really corny at first, but it's kind of grown on me. Right. We have it in a few hotels, and you know what? It works.
Tell me more about that. What's the robot delivery is what? It's like, what robot
delivery. So you order room service or something, or you want a toothbrush, right? You have a robot and it delivers it to your room. It'll see, I forget how the link is, but there's a link and it just, you have to give it the material or you give it the food and it takes it, it actually presses the button for the elevator and it gets off at the right floor and it goes to the room. They're not really prevalent, but they're kind of clunky and goofy and but they work. They actually work. Right. And so that's the one thing, the problem in our business is we're, and sometimes I think we're a little archaic in terms of the things that we do. Right. If you think about it now, it's a lot more than this.
I would really love it if whenever I order room service, I'm always exhausted and like in my pajamas and like ready to go to bed. And I don't want to see another human. I'm always embarrassed when I'm like half asleep and, in my robe and like the very polite and nicely dressed server's like, may I come in? I'm like, yeah. I would just assume the robot like knocked on the door and I could just take the tray out. But that's just me.
Yeah. It depends where you stay,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this isn't going to make you feel any better, but when you're at a hotel and you're in your pajamas and you're half asleep, I mean, nobody cares, right? The staff just doesn't care, right? They really don't. You know what I mean?
I believe that. I totally believe that. Nobody cares that I am like wearing like my face mask to hold my hair back. I truly believe no one cares.
I wouldn't overthink it. I guess my point.
This. I want to. We're going to come back to that. Your tips for how to best be a hotel. But I think what you were saying about some things we do in hotels are archaic. One of the challenges for hotel management is that there are some people who just love the little archaic things. They're nostalgic for it. And there are some people who want their robot to bring them their room service. And you can't please everyone. That's one of those
please everyone.
Issues, right?
We have a wonderful hotel in Kennebunkport, Maine. No TVs, no air conditioning. And it's 100 years old and the place does great.
Is it the Colony?
The Colony, yeah.
I've been there. I've been to that hotel. I didn't realize it was you guys.
Yeah.
Sarah, I think a lot of our edit team would enjoy this. It makes me think of being like an old fashioned writer. They've got like small little writing desks in the room. And I feel like
really?
you could
I would love that.
You would write a novel there. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I didn't know this
was your property.
That.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm up there. I'm saying to myself, we got to put TVs. Then I'm walking around. I'm looking at the customers and they're happy. And, it's just, I agree with you. There's shuffleboard. Yeah.
The second you put a TV in one of those rooms, the magic is gone. I'm sorry. You cannot promise me, tell the owner, you cannot put a TV in those rooms.
So as we look into like the future, like as we look to 2030, like what do you think or into the 2030s, what do you think is in store for kind of the next decade of hospitality? How is it going to change? How's it going to stay the same? What are your predictions as we enter the end of 2025?
Well, I think that hotels will be less of just a place to stay. Like this whole, as we talked about earlier, this wellness, experience in food and, culture. I mean, particularly on the independent space, I mean, the hotels have to be able to sort of provide the guest with, they're going there for a specific reason. Well, let me step back. And independent hotels for sure, but on, urban or branded hotels, people aren't going there because they want some special, whatever it is, right? Or some special location. Sarah, when you were talking about, how you were, really tired or something, and, you're just going to the hotel because it's convenient to where you're meeting it, right?
Yeah.
Those aren't the hotels I'm talking about. I'm talking about the stuff where people actually really want to go get away, but they also want to work. They have to work, when they're there too. So maybe you think about it over the holidays, while you may go to Michigan and you'll see family, but if you're staying in a hotel, you're going to do some work at some point in time. And so I don't necessarily want to sit in the room. Yeah. I don't want to sit in the room and do my work. If I'm on a beach location, I want to be able to work outside. Right.
Yeah.
and and maybe I'll have a mocktail, maybe. All right,
Maybe.
probably
Maybe.
not a mocktail.
Probably not. Probably
Probably
a real,
not.
Probably
Yeah.
full chain.
Yeah.
Probably. So, so when we think about those hotels, you still want to have this leisure component, but they have to be. You have to have a sense of place where I can do my work for a couple hours, right? Because that's just the way the world's going.
I totally agree. Absolutely, 1,000%. Yep.
When I look at the hotel development pipeline data, and we're coming, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but I look at the data, we talked to a lot of brands. It feels like the future of hotels is these brands just keep growing and growing and growing, especially with like AI makes it harder and harder to be discovered. But you're telling me, you're like, oh, I love our independent space. I see no one goes to you're basically saying no one goes to a brand with purpose. You go there because you wind up there. So as you think about the next decade of hospitality, if I can just push you in a certain direction on this, like refine this question a little bit, what do you make on that? Like, where's the future of branded hospitality versus the future of independent hospitality?
I'm not so sure. Look, I believe the brands are not going away anytime soon. It's just not. Yeah, they're not. I mean, I think they provide a very valuable and needed service for the industry. It allows people to sort of know what they're getting. They know the place will be clean. They know there'll be some standards. They'll know there'll be, security. They feel safe. And when people travel, safety is a big issue. On the independent side, though, personalization, is not a bonus anymore. It's just a new standard. Like today, it really is a new standard, personalization. But the key is you got to do it with warmth and respect. And one way that we do it is we have a really cutting edge CRM platform, and how we deal with our customers, but it also means we know what they like, right? And if you know what your customers like, they can stay at one hotel one day and they can go to our next independent hotel the next time. And oh, by the way, we know what kind of pillows they like. We know what they want to have, from a food and beverage perspective, when we actually know what kind of wine they drink. Because we put that in our CRM, our CRM platform, which has 10.5 million customers and growing. But also with our independent space hotels, we have our own central reservation system. Okay. And they know, because you can look at it on the screen, that Sarah likes, dark chocolate, and Seth likes, high-end Italian wines. I don't know what he guys like, but it's something like that, right?
I wouldn't be upset with a high-end Italian wine. We'll put it that way, right?
Right. Yeah. So, and if that shows up at the next hotel that you go to with us, how good is that? Think about, it needs to be memorable, right? These things, like you ever, when you travel, you never forget the best family vacation you had, right? You don't forget those things. And so how do we make those type of memories at hotels? And they can be done at branded hotels too. It doesn't have to just be an independent hotel, but those things, wouldn't you really like it or love the fact that you show up at a hotel and, oh, by the way, the pillows that I like are in the room that I'm staying, right? Those are the things where I think the industry is going from a personalization perspective.
So that really does secure kind of the future of, at least in the higher end space, the independent hotel, because they are able to be more, they're just we're not knocking the brands, but just by nature of how they operate, they have more flexibility to be customized and personalized.
They do. But I also think that, when you think about the brands, they have CRM platforms too. Okay.
Sure.
And so I think every organization is moving in that direction. Okay. Where there's personalization and, the thing about the brands, their loyalty programs are what drives a lot of business. Right. So that's hard to compete with. Really hard.
So I think we're coming into the home stretch of this podcast episode. I wanted to ask a few final questions. And I liked where we were talking about, you were giving Sarah the inside scoop of what it's like, the hotelier's perspective of a guest. And I wonder if you have, as we go in here, like top tips for like the hotel insider's guide for guests, like what is really going on in the mind of a hotel employee when top tips for guests at hotels, like something like that. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about the room service. They don't really care how you look anyways. They're not paying attention. Do you have any other tidbits from the mind and life of a hotel employee like that? That the guest, misconceptions that the guest has about a hotel.
Well, first of all, yeah, one of you said it earlier, you're right. In the business, we get people at their absolute worst, right? They're tired, they're hungry, their flight was delayed, my kids yelled at me, why are you going away on this trip? Right? All this stuff, right? All this stuff, and, even in my worst day, I try to engage with the person on the other end, like the front. I always say, hi, how are you? Right?
Yeah.
Because what I figured out is that, and, I do this whether it's one of our hotels or not. What I figured out is the nicer I am to them, usually I get more information or I get a better room or you get something, right? You just get, and I'm trying to remember where was the last place I was at. And I said, hey, the person came up to me and they said, hi, how are you today? And I said, great, how are you? And they were just like flabbergasted that somebody asked them how they were doing, right? I mean, it's so easy, right? It's almost comical.
Kindness doesn't cost you anything. So
that's number one. Number two is, we were talking about wages and people, always tip the name. Always tip the houseman. Always. Leave them something. He doesn't even have to be cash. Leave them something, right? That's the hardest job in the business. I find, and as we were talking about earlier, politeness goes a long way. No matter how bad your day is, that person in front of you clearly didn't cause the problem, right? And if you think about, I think about all the times where, I've sort of lost my shit on somebody. I go back and I kind of go, you know what? I'm really sorry because it had nothing to do with you. I was pissed off at something else, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's literally what happens most of the time, right?
What do you think of guests who think they can bully their way into an upgrade or something like that? There was this I don't know if you saw it. There was this viral video from a couple of years ago of a guest who had booked through an online travel agency and the hotel didn't have their room and the hotel was booked out and they were just trying to bully their way into making a room appear. And this person at the hotel front desk recorded it and posted it and it went viral. And I think the woman got fired. It was a whole thing. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but doesn't matter. What do you think about, how do you handle that? What do you think about that behavior? What's your message to the hotel haters out there?
What do you mean? Do you know who I am? You mean
Yeah,
those people?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story. This was years ago. I was traveling. I think it was at Philadelphia Airport. And some guy was berating one of the flight attendants at the counter before you get aboard the plane. And, he's screaming. He was slammed his hand on the desk. Do you know who I am? And the woman gets on the PA and says, does anybody know who this guy is? Because he has no idea what his name is.
Did you actually saw somebody do that in real life?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Gold star for
everybody laughed.
Him or her.
It was hysterical.
Yeah.
Does anyone know who this gentleman is? Because he clearly doesn't know his name, right? Anyway.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't think that works. I just, there might have been a time, 50s, 60s, right? Maybe even in the 70s, but that doesn't work now. People just shut down. And you know what? Good for them. I wouldn't put up with that nonsense. No one should have to put up with that nonsense. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's
agree.
Not right. Right. And I'm sure that individual who went viral, the woman that she got fired, she knew, right?
Well, anyways, let's end on, I guess, a fun question. You've had a long career in hotels, working in hotels, staying in hotels. What's the ultimate hotel experience, in your opinion? What's the best hotel experience that you've had?
That's so many. It's hard to sort of, the one thing that I would say is that the hotels where the service feels like it's forced, where it's just not intrusive. It's sort of, they're there, they're not there, they're not on top of you all the time. They give you your space, they make it easy, seamless, where it almost feels like you're at home. That's a great hotel experience, right? You're just, everything is easy, from the minute you pull up to the curb, it's not so much that somebody is opening the car door for you, but, let me help you with that. I mean, it's almost like you sort of glide up to the front desk and the check-in process is seamless. We actually, I'm wearing a shirt here that says Newport Beach, can't see it. We had this renaissance at this hotel. And we were the 4th manager, I think, in 6 years, right? And the reason, I like this hotel a lot is that the management team uses all the tools that we have. The owner actually spent a bunch of money at the hotel. Place looks great. Had an asset manager who was a got you asset manager. He listened to us, removed that individual. One of the best performing hotels. You guys so happy with us. If it's a branded hotel in a commercial market, but it's just a really, really easy place to go in, stay, and you just feel comfortable. You go to a hotel, you feel really comfortable there. You sort of go in, you got, right? That's a really great hotel stay. And that happens at branded hotels and independent hotels, particularly ones that are run by Pyramid Global Hospitality. How about that?
There you go.
Naturally,
there you go.
of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Warren Field, thank you so much for being on the show today. We will end on that warm and fuzzy note on Pyramid. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Seth. And we will see everybody next week.
Thanks, Warren.
See you guys. Thank you.